Think about the friend you haven't spoken to in 6 months. No texts, no calls, no shared memes. Then, one Tuesday, you reach out. There is no guilt trip. There's no, "Where have you been?" or "I thought you forgot about me." You just start. You pick up the conversation exactly where it dropped off, as if the last 6 months were merely a long pause for breath. There is a specific kind of person who occupies this space in our lives. We often call them the low-maintenance friend. Usually, we use that term as a compliment, a way of saying they're easy to deal with. But if we look closer, the psychology behind this trait isn't just about being easygoing. It's about a fundamentally different way of perceiving connection, time, and the self. It's an identity built on the belief that a bond doesn't need to be fed every day to stay alive. When we talk about maintenance in a friendship, we are usually talking about the frequency of proof. For many, a friendship is like a fire. If you don't keep adding wood, it goes out. But for the low-maintenance individual, the friendship is more like a landmark. It's a mountain or a building. It doesn't need to be constantly tended to. It simply exists. This behavior often stems from a high level of internal autonomy. Most social interactions require a certain amount of performance, responding to a text within a certain time frame, showing up to every event, or providing constant emotional reassurance. The low-maintenance friend often bypasses this. Their internal world is self-sustaining. They don't look to the friendship to constantly validate their worth or their social standing. Because they don't need the ping of a notification to feel seen, they don't feel the urge to provide it for others in a performative way. In a psychological sense, this is a form of deep trust, not just in the other person, but in the permanence of the connection. They operate under the assumption that if the bond is real, it is durable. It doesn't require the social tax of constant check-ins. To them, the silence between conversations isn't a void or a sign of drifting away. It's just life happening in the foreground. We might see this manifest in small, subtle ways. They are the ones who don't get offended if you cancel plans because you're tired. They don't keep a mental scorecard of who called whom last. This lack of a scorecard is a key psychological marker. It suggests that their ego isn't tied to the transaction of the friendship. They aren't trading their time for your attention. They are sharing their life when it makes sense to do so. However, there is a deeper layer here that we often miss. While we appreciate the easy nature of these friends, we rarely ask why they are this way. For many low-maintenance individuals, this trait isn't just a preference, it's a boundary. It's a quiet rejection of the modern always-on culture. We live in an era of digital tethering, where being unreachable is often interpreted as being uncaring. By being low maintenance, they are effectively opting out of that demand. They are reclaiming their time and, by extension, giving you permission to reclaim yours. Music shifts slightly, becomes a bit more contemplative, lower bass tones. But here's where the pattern reveals something unexpected. We often assume that the low-maintenance friend is the chilled-out one because they are less emotional, or perhaps less invested. But the aha moment in this psychological pattern is actually the opposite. The low-maintenance friend is often the most deeply observant. Because they aren't focused on the frequency of the connection, they are hyper-focused on the quality of it. They aren't looking for a constant friend. They are looking for a consistent friend. There's a massive difference. Constancy is about time, being there all the time. Consistency is about character, being the same person whenever you do show up. This is the turning point in understanding their identity. Their low-maintenance nature is actually a filtration system. By removing the high-demand social rules, they see who stays when the noise of constant communication is gone. They aren't being distant. They are being selective. They are creating a space where the friendship can survive on its own merit, rather than on the life support of daily small talk. This reveals a profound truth about how they view intimacy. For them, intimacy isn't built through the quantity of shared minutes, but through the depth of the re-entry. When you do finally speak, the conversation moves quickly past the weather and into the things that actually matter. They have a high threshold for silence, but a very low tolerance for superficiality. In this way, being low maintenance is a form of psychological economy. They save their energy for the moments of genuine need or genuine joy, rather than depleting it on the maintenance of the image of a friendship. This is why, when things go wrong, when you're in a real crisis, the low-maintenance friend is often the first one to show up. They haven't burned their social battery on 3 months of "how are you" texts, so they have the full capacity to sit with you in the dark when it actually counts. This pattern of behavior suggests a very specific identity, the anchor rather than the sail. A sail moves with every gust of wind. It's reactive, constant, and always in motion. An anchor stays put. It's quiet, it's out of sight, and it doesn't seem to be doing much until the storm hits. Only then do you realize its value. When we look at the low-maintenance friend through this lens, we stop seeing them as distant and start seeing them as secure. They provide a rare form of psychological safety, the safety of knowing that a relationship is not a fragile thing that will break if you forget to acknowledge a birthday post, or if you disappear into your own life for a few weeks. They offer the gift of being unburdening. In a world that constantly asks for our attention, our data, and our energy, the low-maintenance friend asks for none of it. They simply remain. As we observe this pattern, we realize that the low-maintenance friend isn't just easy to have around. They are an embodiment of a different philosophy of human connection, one that values the internal over the external and the durable over the frequent. They remind us that the strongest bonds aren't held together by the frequency of the pings on our phones, but by the quiet understanding that space is not the same thing as distance. By understanding the psychology of the low-maintenance friend, we begin to see that their silence isn't a lack of care. It's a form of respect. It's the belief that you are both whole, independent people who don't need to lean on each other every second just to stay upright. It's an identity rooted in the idea that the best way to love someone is to give them the room to breathe, knowing that whenever they turn back around, you'll still be there. No explanations needed, no apologies required. Just the steady, quiet reality of a connection that doesn't need to prove it exists, because it simply does.